Good afternoon, trainees. My name is Maria Anifa, and today I will be training on the topic that says listening, tips for active listening skills. Um, I'm very delighted to be here today. Um, I personally love and enjoy this topic because I have seen the effects of what listening can do, how listening can be so powerful to change a person's life just by paying attention to what they had to say non judgmentally. I've seen the impact of how it can improve someone else's life. And this is the reason I have chosen this topic to train you on. And you will gain a lot of experience and benefits from this class. Listening can go a long way in strengthening our interpersonal relationships, in making them blossom. A lot of people might view listening as a mundane, ordinary thing. However, I would say that no, listening is not mundane, is not an inactive endeavor. Instead, it needs a lot of intentionality. And if you're intentional about listening, it will bring forth good fruits in your relationships, and you will be even a better communicator. Um, so the objective for this training is that at the end of this training, the trainees should be able to list and describe the 4 tips for active listening skills in communication. Once again, I am choosing to train you on this topic because I have seen firsthand in my personal relationships about the importance of listening to other people and how it can grow your relationship with anyone really. So in today's training, we would be looking at these following just these following topics under listening. First, we would define what listening is. Next, we would define what active listening is. The third is that we will give you tips for active listening. The fourth is that I would also talk about the importance and benefits of active listening. Afterwards, we would do an exercise, which involves reading an excerpt that shows whether you listen or not. Next, I'll talk about some conclusions about listening. And the last thing that will be done will be another exercise, which is exercise 2. So now that we've gotten the preview, let's jump in. What is listening, right? You're like, okay, oh, it's a normal thing. Why do we have to define it? Well, it is important that we do define what listening is. And so listening involves giving one's attention in the process of a communication encounter. It is an interpersonal skill that is very important. It involves taking notice of what someone says, making an effort to hear something, having the readiness to hear. It also can include responding to what someone has said or to an advice or request. Also, it also involves listening, involves acting on what someone has said, because it is only when the person has fully communicated, then you are able to respond well, and because you have listened well. Now we would move on to what active listening is. So, what is active listening? Active listening, according to Comstock 2020, active listening involves acknowledging that the words spoken by someone else have been heard, and also involves reflecting feelings and meanings to show understanding of what had been said. An active listener does not only do that, but also pays attention to body language, tone, and other nonverbal clues regarding a speaker's message. So we can see that the definition of active listening kind of supersedes what listening is, because it goes beyond just being ready to hear what someone is saying. It also means you're paying attention to their emotions, their body language, and even reflecting on the feelings and meanings of what is being said. Moving forward, I would like to talk about the tips for active listening, which is like one of our main, which is the training objective, to let you be able to list and describe the 4 tips for active listening that will be talked about in this training today. The first tip is for active listening is paying attention. So, for example, if it's a physical conversation, one of the ways to show that you're listening actively or that you're paying attention is make sure you put down your phone, mute all the electronics. If you have TV in the background, put that down as well. And then another way to pay attention is to be very keen to seek answers to questions like, oh, why is this person telling me this? Or what is the takeaway? Um, or what is the takeaway of this? So all of that, it goes into place when you're trying to pay attention as a listener. Uh, However, even though you have these questions, do not try answering these questions in your head while the speaker is still talking. Instead, let the answers unfold as you listen. That's when active listening actually comes into play. Another tip would be to show that you're listening. The second tip for active listening is to show that you're listening. How can you show that in your physical body? One of the ways is by nodding when appropriate, by making eye contact, giving verbal comments like yes, huh, and not interrupting at all. We have the temptation to want to reiterate what someone has said and then we interrupt them. Well, that is not a sign of active listening. Now, the third one, the third tip will be offer feedback. Now, this is very important to note. When you are offering feedback, only do it when the opportunity comes up. Do not interrupt in order to offer feedback. No, wait until the opportunity comes up and then offer your feedback or give follow-up questions, thoughts, and perspective. And then the last tip would be do not jump into conclusions. Do not ever do that. Make sure you do not make unfair assumptions. If you're not clear about what the speaker is saying, give them a chance to rephrase or clarify. Now we would move on to the importance or benefits of active listening. First, it prevents you from missing important information. Second, it can help you resolve conflict. Third, it builds trust and strong relationships. And number 4, it helps you build more knowledge of the matter that is being discussed. Right now, I would love for us to go into our exercise 1. Exercise 1 entails that we read an excerpt, and the excerpt for today's training is from the book titled Listening: Forgotten Skill by Madeline Burley. We would be reading from page 7, and I've highlighted in our training manuals the part the part to read. So, but I would like to ask one of you to read that out for us. Thank you for reading it. So, as we go on, I will go back to this excerpt to figure out if you truly listened. So that would be the test of whether you listened or not. So thank you for participating in the first exercise of reading the excerpt from the book Listening: Forgotten Skill by Madeline Burley. Now I would move on to some conclusions about listening. Listening, first conclusion is that listening is a matter of attitude and an intellectual and emotional process. Listeners can be placed into 4 categories: non-listener, marginal listener, evaluative listener, and active listener, which is what we are focusing on active listening in this training. Active listening requires listening for the content, intent, and feeling of the speaker. It also means we should not be hurried in our communication with people. Now to exercise 2. I would love to ask the following questions to see if you remember what was read in our excerpt. It will show whether you listened or not. And after you answer these questions, the grade of 70% and above shows that you're an active listener. Anything less than that means you have to work on it. Um, Thank you so much for participating in all these exercises. I just wanted to say thank you for being a part of today's training. Remember that our training objective is to list and describe the 4 tips for active listening. And in this class, we have covered what is listening, what is active listening, what is the importance of active listening, and we've done some exercises. I hope that you would take all of the knowledge you've gotten from here and convert it into action by beginning to listen more intentionally through these skills and tips on active listening that we have discussed in today's training. Thank you so much and have a great day.